Okay. So, hello and good evening to everyone that has joined us for the inaugural talk of the Inspirit lecture series conducted jointly by ESL IIT Madras and the IIT Madras Alumni Association. I am Abhinav Nahata, a manager at ESL IIT Madras. We are extremely honored to have none other than Mr. Kris Gopalakrishnan, who is a guest speaker for today. Mr. Kris Gopalakrishnan is the chairman of Axilor Ventures, which is the #1 accelerator and seed fund in the country. He served as the CEO and MD of Infosys from 2007 to 2011. And for the next 3 years, he served as its vice chairman. He's also one of the 7 founders of Infosys, the company responsible for making India the IT hub it is today. In 2011, Mr. Gopalakrishnan was awarded the country's third highest civilian honor, Padma Bhushan, by the Government of India. And amongst his several other notable achievements, our favorite one is that he is also a distinguished alumnus of the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. So it's an absolute privilege to have you here, and I hope you are in good health amidst this global pandemic.
Thank you, Abhinav. And yes, I am, and I hope all of you are in good health.
Thank you, sir. We shall start with your keynote now.
Thanks again, Abhinav, and good evening to everyone. It's an honor and privilege for me to talk to you today. And of course, what better topic than preparing for the new normal. Clearly, we are going through unprecedented crisis at this point, which is facing the entire world, and when something like this happens, you are sure that the world is going to be very different after the pandemic. Lots of things are going to change. Our own perception of things, our view of what is important, what is not important, our view of who will survive, not survive, what do we need to survive. Every one of this will get impacted, will change after this pandemic, and that's what I want to cover today. But first, as I said, it's a global pandemic, and the safety of each one of you, your family, your colleagues must be your own responsibility. We have to all take responsibility, wear mask, keep social distancing. Hygiene is very important. Whatever we can do to stop the spread of this virus is very, very important. We saw the news item in the last 2 days which talked about a vaccine, but the vaccine is still probably 6 months out. So till that time, we need to act responsibility to slow down or stop the spread of this virus. Self-discipline is important. And during this time, the classes are not going to be full-time, probably going to be started online. And there may be free time, and you have to use your free time appropriately to update your skills, maybe volunteer time, etc. And I'll talk about this more as we go along. Now, what are the lessons from the crisis? This is what is important, because this is what is going to change the status quo. This is what is going to change how we emerge from the crisis. And I've included here some things which I believe are very, very important. First and foremost is life is full of twists and turns. I have experienced this in my life. You plan for something, but there are so many things that are not under your control, factors which are beyond your control, and something else happens. And then you need to kind of recoup from that and energize yourself and retrace the path sometimes, but create a new path, create a new goal, and go forward. Just one instance, as soon as I took over as CEO in 2007, the next year the financial crisis struck, right? So the next 2-3 years was about making sure that Infosys emerges out of that stronger, our employees are stronger, our customers are stronger, etc. And whatever dreams I had, whatever plans I had to be kind of put on the back burner, and I had to face the crisis and overcome the crisis together with, of course, all the employees of Infosys. So resilience is important. Resilience for individuals, resilience for organizations are very, very important in facing such crisis. Actually, we have seen low probability events happening. If somebody said that in our lifetime we will see a pandemic that will shut down the entire world, I don't think we would have believed it even in February of 2020. I didn't actually. In fact, I still remember March first week. I was coming back from Bhutan for a trip, and when I landed in Calcutta airport, they were checking our temperature. That's when I realized that there is a pandemic. But even then, we didn't realize that it's going to shut down everything. It's going to shut down the entire world. I talked about the 2008 financial crisis. Again, of course, that was restricted to the financial services industry primarily, but it had ripple effects. It had impact on all industries, actually. And so low probability events are happening, and we need to keep this in the back of our minds that there are many things that are not under our control, and we need to plan for these things. And we need to have some plan B, some backup plan always. The other interesting thing that happened during this pandemic is the acceleration of digital adoption, and this is reflected in many things that we have seen. Work from home has become norm, but limited to those people who can actually work from home. Not everybody could actually work from home. Telemedicine has really taken off because there is no other way that you can have consultations with your physician, with your doctor, etc. Business meetings, even this interaction now is on video conference, right? Probably before March, we would have actually organized this physically. I would have got an opportunity to come to IIT Madras, and we would have done it there. But now we are doing this over video conference and things like that. E-commerce has really picked up. Everybody is consuming more media and entertainment at this point. The usage of bandwidth has shot through the roof. Overall, the transition to digital has accelerated, and some people believe that what would have taken 3 years has been actually accelerated to happen in just 3 months. The reason why I say this is a lesson is that if it can be done during a pandemic, what can we do to accelerate things during normal times? Because this is a lesson, working from home. We have been talking for many years. Telemedicine, we have been talking for many years, because telemedicine is the only way we can reach every nook and corner of India. We can bring our best experts to every citizen of India. We can give access to affordable quality healthcare to every citizen. But the pandemic has allowed us to accelerate this and establish telemedicine as the way to go forward. Now, I hope that this stays around. Now, some things should not stay around. Online classes, for example. Yes, we will use mixed mode classes, but it's probably not going to be all online. Some courses may be delivered online, but there will be many courses that are in classroom in the future. Faster change of regulations, actually, and again, this we need to learn from this. If a pandemic can accelerate the change in regulations, etc., normal time, why can't? And there are many regulations. So, for example, previously board meetings have to be physical. Now, I know the meetings where you join by call or video conference were not recognized for attendance purposes. You will write it in the minutes saying that the person participated for video conference or telephone, but then your attendance is not valid. So you'll be marked as absent. But now, even AGM, annual general meetings, can be conducted over online media, video conference, etc. I talked about work from home, e-prescriptions. The government allowed e-prescriptions. So before the pandemic struck, e-prescriptions are not allowed. Now e-prescriptions are allowed. Lots of last dates were extended, submission of reports online, and I can go on actually. But the key is, if we can actually change regulations in such a short period of time, why can't we change regulations during normal times? Those that need change, not those that should not be changed, but those that need change should be changed faster. And India has been talking about the ease of doing business, making it easier for us to set up a new business, a startup. So many regulations have to be complied with by startups, etc., and startups don't have the bandwidth to comply with those actually. So how can we accelerate this, eliminate these regulations, etc.? If we can do that during pandemic, why can't we do it during normal times? Other lesson is, the pandemic clearly exposed the fissures in society, the disparity that exists, the discrimination that exists. The poor are badly affected. We have all seen on TV, on internet, on social media, how people had to walk or cycle long distances to go back. Migration from urban areas to rural areas, etc. People working in informal sector are more affected. Then on the online classes, for example, if you don't have a PC at home, if you don't have internet connectivity, or if you have a poor internet connectivity, then you can't benefit from that actually. And so again, the digital divide is being amplified during this time. Older people with comorbidities are actually at risk during the pandemic, and they if they catch the disease, the probability that it will become severe or they may actually die is more with older people and people with comorbidities, etc. So that again shows that there is a difference in how it affects people. The two-speed economy, because certain businesses are more affected. If you are in the travel, tourism industry, airline industry, you are severely affected, revenue becoming almost zero. Whereas businesses that can actually work remotely didn't see much impact actually. IT companies, IT services companies have declared results over the last few days, and most of them actually have done well. Several businesses are actually still getting investments. It's good actually. For example, Jio was able to attract a few $1 billion of investment during this downturn. Many of our unicorns were able to attract investments during this downturn. But there are many other businesses which were not able to, and they are struggling to even get a bank loan, especially the MSME sector. And the fissures in the healthcare system. And this is very interesting because, in the developed economy, if you compare US versus Europe, continental Europe, Germany, etc., for example, yes, they were affected in the beginning, but they were able to bring it under control very quickly. Whereas US is still struggling to get the pandemic under control. And in the developing economies also, the situation is very similar. There are smaller countries which have done extremely well in containing the pandemic. Some of the Southeast Asian countries actually, Vietnam, for example, whereas India, Brazil are struggling to contain the economy. So again, the differences, and this is actually going to be studied for many years to come. This will become material for papers to be published, classroom um, discussions and research papers and things like that. We have seen unprecedented collaboration between industry, academia, startups, government. For example, in the manufacturing of PPE, the personal protection equipment. Before the pandemic, all of that, 100% of that was imported. But today, 70-80% is actually now domestically manufactured. Actually, why couldn't they have done that before? A lot of the dependencies on global supply chains are actually getting changed at this point. Global collaboration on research is happening. Unprecedented collaboration on research is happening. Global collaboration on vaccine development is happening. And there is significant collaboration between civil society and industry, for example, to take care of the migrant labor, provide them food, provide them with income, provide them with transportation, provide them with places to stay. And industry has also come forward, and civil society is at the front of providing these services. Science at speed. If we are able to find cures, find a vaccine, race to understand the virus. There are 24,000 peer-reviewed papers published in the last 3-4 months about this virus, and umpteen number of non-peer-reviewed papers, and people are referring to non-peer-reviewed papers today. So, significant acceleration of research and science at speed. And again, my question is, why can't we do this when we are in normal times, etc.? Because these are all good things. These are lessons to be learned. These are, how did it happen? What did we do to make it happen? What we can learn from these things. Next, I will shift to future opportunities. So the first part was about what happened during and what is still happening, but there are lessons to be learned. There are things that we need to internalize. There are lessons we need to study, and there are lessons that we need to take advantage of during normal times as we emerge from this pandemic crisis. Now let's look at future opportunities. Now, future is not a linear extrapolation of the past at all. Especially when technology disruptions happen, especially when a pandemic like this happens, the future is definitely not an extrapolation of the past, and future will be very different. That's the first statement I made, right? That we are going to be in a new world after the pandemic. There will be several constraints that get removed. Maybe there are some new constraints that come in the future. All of this are going to be happening because of people, leaders and entrepreneurs. Leaders make change happen. Entrepreneurs bring new products, new services, new innovations happen, new businesses are created. And so it's all influenced by leaders and entrepreneurs. A disruptive technology of the crisis can accelerate change. And we are always looking for a faster, better, cheaper way to do things. And that's why I wanted to demonstrate in the first part of the presentation that there are better ways to do things, there are cheaper ways to do things, there are faster ways to do things, and how can we take those lessons and apply it on a daily basis in the future. I'll give you an example from the IT services industry. Infosys started way back in the 1981 when the personal computer was introduced to the world, and we saw that the personal computer is going to democratize computing, which means that anybody who needs a computer will get a computer on their desk. So you will see offices where every employee will get a computer, and immediately what happens? All business processes get automated using computers and software. So we saw the need to write all that software, and can India leverage our lower cost economy, lower cost of living to write this sitting here in India? And that's where we came out with remote software development. And today, remote digital services, delivery of remote digital services, that's anything that can be done remotely using a computer, using a telecommunication link is the way to do it. And we have shifted the work to where the people are rather than shifting the people to where the work is. It's a very fundamental change, and all this happened because of introduction of personal computer, and we took full advantage of this. This business is today $190 billion, about 8% of India's GDP, employs 4 million people, etc. And so we have seen actually how we can take advantage of disruptions and create new businesses, how we can ride on a wave. Riding on a wave, for example, there are many examples here. I won't go through all of them. With the introduction of computers, initially it was about hardware, right? So companies like IBM, DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation, HP came. Of course, IBM and HP are still here. DEC has disappeared. When the personal computer was introduced, Apple, Compaq, Dell. Compaq has disappeared. Dell and Apple are still there. Software, Microsoft, SAP, Oracle. So even when social media was introduced, Facebook and Twitter came. Mobile phone, Samsung, Apple, etc. So when you ride on a wave, you can actually create very large companies. You can have significant impact, you can have global impact, and you can completely transform how things happen before that wave, before that technology wave struck you. And when you look at the history of the world also, and I will just show you, India was India was 16% of the global economy in the 19th century. Today we are about 6%, but we are down to about 2% actually in the 80s, etc. Now we are slowly going up to 6%. But look at US, from 2%, even in 1900 they were about 10-12%. They went to almost 35% of the economy during the World War. Then for several years they were around 25% of the economy. Now they're 19% of the economy. So US, for example, in the 20th century rode on two things. One, they rode on the wave of the world wars. It's a crisis, right? And they became the manufacturing hub for the world, because manufacturing couldn't happen in Europe, etc. It could happen in the US, and they took full advantage of that and built a strong economy on top of the world wars and manufacturing. But after the World War, they actually took advantage of the digital computer revolution, the internet, the mobile phone, etc., and built a very strong economy. So even if you look at the history of the world, you can see that you can ride on these waves and take advantage of that. And this century, the century that you are going to make an impact and you're going to make a difference, is going to be India's century, provided you ride on a wave and you take advantage of the opportunities that are provided to you. And so what waves are there? We already are in the midst of smartphones, IoT devices, telecom infrastructure, internet, etc. But there are many new technologies that are being introduced today, emerging technologies which will have significant impact. 3D printing will have impact on how manufacturing happens and what gets manufactured, where it gets manufactured. You can download the design and create the product at home. You can create human organs, print human organs and things like that. So a lot of interesting stuff is happening there. AI and ML. It's a horizontal technology that's going to fundamentally change everything that we do, including every business and things like that. Genetics, code of life. Again, better materials. Now people are talking about thinner, faster computer processors, actually, CPUs with better materials like white graphene and things like that. The whole area of data business, actually, again, an emerging area which can be $1 trillion business. In India itself, it's estimated to be $500 billion, actually. And the fourth industrial revolution, where we are going to combine physical, digital, and biological um, um, things or living beings, and we can combine these things together. You can interact with each other, you can control these things, and that's why the fourth industrial revolution is exciting. And every industrial revolution has transformed the world, created new leadership, and created new businesses. Every industry sector will be changing. So in healthcare, for example, with IoT, connected device, telemedicine, genomics, personalized medicine, robotic surgery, preventive medicine, membership based, everything, every one of these things is going to change healthcare. Some of these are technologies, some of these are business models. For example, membership based healthcare is a business model change actually. In media and entertainment, we have moved to asynchronous. We can, for example, this will be recorded and you can watch it later also, right? So the whole area of media is changing. You watch it on your personal device rather than on a TV. Everybody has their own personal device. So at home, in olden days, I'm old, we have one TV, maybe one channel, then we got many channels, but still one TV. So, all the family members would fight which channel should be seen, etc. But today, no fight, because everybody has their own personal device and they watch whatever they want to watch. And we can have shared experiences, even though we are all separated by distance. We could be chatting while we are watching. We could be, sharing our experiences, etc. I won't go into every one of them. India is extremely important to the world for many reasons, and India is the place to be. I strongly believe that. The numbers are there. We are 1.3 billion people, 1.4 billion people. So it's a large consumer base where the per capita income is growing. See, I have seen per capita income grow in my own lifetime. 1993, the per capita income in India was $600 US dollars per year. Today, it's close to $2,000 per year. That means 3 times in the last 25 years. It's accelerating. So you will probably see that 2,000 go to 5,000 and 10,000 in the next 30 years. That's amazing amount of wealth to be created. At $10,000 per capita income, India will be a $10 trillion economy, and a $10 trillion economy from 2.7. So almost 3 times. Imagine that 3 times the wealth is going to be created in the next 30 years. Every individual, every person in India will have a smartphone with ubiquitous connectivity, and our connectivity charges are one of the lowest and the quality is very good. So we will all be connected using smartphones, tablets, etc. We will see use of embedded devices and things like that, IoT, and this is actually a significant transformation by itself, because when it was mainframe, there were few computers. When we went to PCs, we, let's say, went to millions of computers. When it went to smartphones, we went to billions of devices. Still, let's say, limited by the number of people. Even though people may have 2 or 3 phones, 7 billion devices, right? But tomorrow, we will have 50, 60 billion appliances, devices, IoT things that are connected, and that's an explosion, huge explosion of the number of intelligent devices in the world. Now, we will collect huge amount of data. We will use AI and ML to automate intelligence gathering. And why India is important is that we have the technical capability, the number of professionals required to leverage these technologies, etc. We have the wherewithal to do that. We have the 3rd largest startup ecosystem in the world with access to funding. If you have good ideas, funding is not a problem today. We have experienced entrepreneurs and mentors. India is also the best place to test new solutions and models, actually. See, India has about approximately 4% of Indians own cars. That's about 4 million, 40 million vehicles actually today. Um, and and uh, and about 10% of India can afford a car today. Pretty soon 20% at least can afford a car. Now imagine that actually. Should that be the way we go, or which model should be used for urban mobility and things like that? Should we be investing more on public transportation? Should we be investing in redesigning our cities to walk to work and things like that? Also, what kind of cars should we have? Should we have electric vehicles, smaller vehicles, and things like that? So best place to test new solutions and new models, and government is fully supportive of innovation, startups, and things like that. So I'm going to skip the next 2-3 slides because of um, lack of time, but I want to leave you with this very important message from Steve Jobs. See, when you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world. Try not to shake things up. Try not to bash into the walls too much. Try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money, but that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact. Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it. Once you learn that, you will never be the same again. What I mean by this message is that the next 30 years are going to be even better. You are riding on several technologies, emerging technologies that are going to change the world. That's the wave. Multiple waves are there. It can change every industry, every field, everything. The way we live will be different. And I have absolutely no doubt that we in India can actually take full advantage of these opportunities. We are as smart or smarter. We have the resources that are required. It's a knowledge-based economy, and knowledge is what matters. Creativity is what matters. Innovation is what matters. The ability to work hard, the ability to be smart, that's what matters, and money will come. If you have good ideas, money will come. So we can actually change the world, and that's the world I see after the pandemic. Even during the pandemic, we have seen that the number of deaths in India is one of the lowest in the world, right? And in spite of our lack of good health care infrastructure, we have been able to keep the number of deaths low because of the tremendous work that's being done by our healthcare workers. They are passionately trying to save lives, and that's the reason why then the number of deaths are actually significantly lower in India. We are going through difficult times, but we will emerge out of this stronger. And I want each one of you to think about what you will contribute to that world over the next 20, 30 years. Thank you very much, and let me wish you all the very best. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open it up for now Q&A. So Abhinav, US. I think you were muted, Abhinav. Yeah.
So thank you, sir, for the insightful presentation. We are sure that the audience is inspired and better equipped to prepare for the new normal. Moving ahead, we have received quite a few questions during the course of your live session. I would like to ask some of those to you.
Sure.
So, sir, with the current situation, what would the VCs be looking for in a startup in the post-pandemic era? Would you also be looking for something specific?
See, during this pandemic, what I see is that the VCs will double down on their best companies because they want the best companies to survive, and they will keep funding those so that they can actually survive and emerge stronger. Which corollary of that is, if the company is not doing too well, the business model is not very clear, it's not strong, in the seed stage, etc., the funding will be a challenge. Post the pandemic, I see the VCs coming back with a vengeance, right? Because you will have a high growth economy. You will have several new opportunities coming up. There will be a pent up, number of startups coming, etc. And the VCs have money. They have a lot of money, and so you will get, every sorry about that. Um, every or every other startup will get funded. And what the VCs look for is the same always, actually. They look for a good team, they look for a good idea, they look for an idea that can scale up dramatically, that can give them obscene returns, right? That's what they would look for.
Yeah, sir. So moving on to the next question. So will Western consumerism go down in India post-COVID pandemic? Also, will we see indigenous products securing a bigger share in India and the global space?
So two different questions. First is on Western consumerism.
Yes, sir.
I feel that memories are short-lived. That's what I've seen in the past. Right, once the pandemic is over, people forget. Even during the pandemic, we saw, right, once the lockdown was lifted, people were going crazy, right? Suddenly forgetting that the pandemic is still there. They were socializing, congregating, and that's where the spread is happening, right? So
Yeah.
the same thing is what will happen when the pandemic is over. We will forget a lot of these lessons, and that's why we want to internalize these. We want to document these, and the Western society is a consumer society, and I think they will go back to the consumer society. It will take much longer for changes to happen, I believe, but I could be very wrong. But in India, I think we will, because we don't have that kind of resources to waste, and we have a large informal sector. 90% of the people are working in the informal sector. It's still a poor country, right? We can't afford to splurge. So I think we will be a lot more careful, and that's why I'm very hopeful that we will emerge with a different culture, with a different attitude, a can-do attitude, with a lot of courage and things like that. And we have seen that we need to reduce our dependencies on foreign goods, etc. So a lot of, I think, transition to domestic manufacturing where it's appropriate. That's very, very important. We shouldn't just blindly say, let's do everything here and forget about imports. Where we are stronger, better, cheaper, that's where we need to make investments to create domestic companies.
Oh, thank you, sir. So, sir, as you talked about it, COVID has also acted as a catalyst for digital transformation in a lot of sectors. So, sir, do you see any cons to this fast-track transformation?
Yes, that's why I was very tentative about education, right? We can't completely move to online education. I think there is a benefit to being in a campus, being independent, away from parents, learning how to live on your own in a safe environment, in a sort of safe environment before you go out to get jobs, and bring up a family and things like that. So that training is actually starting in the hostels and in the campus and things like that. The friends that you make, it's about outside the classroom. The friendship is about being outside the classroom, doing things together, going out, etc. So all of those things will be missed if we just completely transform to online. Learning by doing will be completely missed if you do completely online. But it's be mixed mode. So there are things that we shouldn't completely transition to. We need to be smarter in how we transition to the digital.
Okay, sir. So moving on to the next question. So in the past, you have hailed the research park at IIT Madras as a significant step towards filling the gap between research and development. So what do you feel about the current scenario of R&D in India?
See, the people are good. The people who are doing research, the scientists are very good, because the same scientists, when they go to Europe or they go to US, do extraordinary work, right? It's the same, right? There was a study done, several Fortune 500 companies have Indian CEOs today, right? So there's nothing wrong with the people in terms of ability to research, being scientists, etc. We can get equipment. We need to train them. I think we need to probably change the system. The system in India is that there's one professor, couple of PhD students, they have small budget and they do small things. They are not ambitious. They don't think about huge things, etc. Once in a while, we get a huge project. For example, the LIGO project, where we proved the gravity waves of, which Einstein had predicted 100 years. India had a major role to play in proving the gravity waves exist, etc., measuring the gravity waves. There were about, I think, across India, there were about 200 people or something like involved in the LIGO project, actually. So there are efforts like this. ISRO is one example which comes to my mind in the public sector, where world-class work is being done, which is cutting-edge scientific work and things like that. So we need to change the system. We need to create ambitious goals. We need to create larger programs. We need to think about moonshots, landing on moon, landing on Mars, such kind of projects, cure for cancer, cure for Alzheimer's. Think big and have a larger budget and put larger number of people to work on it, give them the infrastructure that's necessary, and then you will see that we will get fantastic results.
So, sir, moving on to your journey. So, after you graduated, you co-founded Infosys at the age of 25. So, what was your motivation while starting Infosys?
Well, the starting Infosys, there were two things, right? One was the idea, which is to do remote software development sitting in India for customers around the world. So that's the idea. But my own personal thing was, I'm young. I felt that if I do this and succeed, I create a new path for myself. If I fail, I can go back and get a job, right? So the risk didn't seem too big, actually, and that's why when Narayan Murthy called me and said, let's think about doing that, we said yes immediately. And of course, then it was a struggle for the next 20 years before we saw success.
So, sir, Infosys had quite an unconventional start with 7 co-founders. So, generally, the ideal number of co-founders is believed to be either 2 or 3. So, how was the team dynamic and work experience in your initial years?
See, the most important thing in team is that they need to have similar mindsets, similar ambitions, similar goals in life. For example, we didn't want to become instant millionaires.
Yeah.
Right? If you wanted to become instant millionaires, Infosys was not the way to go. In fact, in 1989, we said, we have worked hard for 8 years and nothing to show. Our classmates, batchmates are all, driving around in fancy cars. They have apartments to show, family built, growing. Some of them settled in the US. And, we were struggling in Bangalore. None of us had any apartment or flat to say our own, no cars, nothing. And we were practically willing to give up, actually. Luckily, we didn't give up. So, and that's because our ambitions were limited. It was not about money or anything like that. It was about building a respected company, building something which shows that India can be world class, etc. Those were the ambitions, and And that's the reason why we stayed together. We had over time developed mutually exclusive skill sets, capabilities. We gave space to each other to work, and that worked beautifully. We respected each other. We were family friends, so it worked beautifully. None of us were related to each other, but we were closer than relatives actually, and we are still
Uh,
closer than relatives.
so you joined IIT Madras as a student at MSc Physics, but you later made a transition to computer science. So how did that change happen?
Pure luck. I was introduced to a class on Fortran programming language being offered in the campus free of cost. And I was told that if you take that class, you can get access to the computer center. Because in those days, you don't get access to the computer center unless you are studying computer science or you have some reason to use the computer. Right? At MSc Physics, we didn't use computers at all. We were using calculators, So I took that Fortran class. I got access to computing facility, and then I got excited to actually use computers. Um, felt that this is, and learned more about the computers, and felt this is something that probably will be interesting, may make an impact, and it's a new area, new field. So I thought, let me get in. And that's the reason why I tell each one of you actually, look for a wave, look for something that is emerging and build your career on that. Emerging industries, emerging technologies, build a career on that, and then you will benefit by riding the wave.
So, sir, coming to the final question of the evening, sir, if you had graduated this year, given the present scenario, so what would you have done differently? I mean, so would you like to add something for this year's graduating batch?
Yes, it is a challenging period, and several of the companies would probably postpone the joining dates, or some may even cancel the offers. Unfortunately, so this is a very difficult period, and when you join, also the kind of work that you will get, the atmosphere you will find in the companies will not be very exciting, because the companies are struggling, businesses are struggling, they're trying to be profitable, they're trying to survive, etc. And so it's a very, very difficult period to pass out. So my first advice would be, if you can actually postpone joining the industry, looking for a job by um, maybe staying an extra year. I'm told that IIT Madras is offering all the BTech students an opportunity to do a 5-year integrated MTech by just adding 1 year, right? So that's something I would take up actually, because it will postpone my, my search for a job actually, and give me a little bit more knowledge, maybe make me round, more rounded and things like that. But if every BTech student opts for a 5-year MTech, I hope IIT Madras can manage that. But that's an option that I would look at actually. The second thing is, um, maybe if you can work for an NGO, for example, because that's an experience that you need to have some time. It's also a way for you to give back to society. In fact, that was there in my last slide actually. If you want to give back to society, there is no time than today, because there's a lot of opportunity for volunteering. There's a lot of reason to volunteer. There are a lot of people that require support, service, help, etc. So I would actually look for a NGO to work for a few months, etc., and then come back and resume my search for job, etc. And that on your resume will look very good. So that's the second option that I would look for. The third option is, if you are thinking of a startup and things like that, I would probably put that on freeze, because not a very good time to begin a new business. You may get little bit funding from friends and relatives, but maybe too difficult to get funding from VCs, etc. Seed funding may be difficult, unless of course you have a brilliant idea. Then you should go ahead, because the brilliant ideas will get always funded, right? And then again, unfreeze it when things improve. It will improve. It will definitely improve. The next is, let's say you join a company, and as I said, companies will be struggling. So there may be opportunities to take on some tough assignments and tough jobs, etc. Work extra hard, more this thing, and to prove that you can learn faster, you can do things faster, you can work harder, you can solve problems, faster, help the company during this time, and leverage this as an opportunity to showcase yourself, right? Take advantage of that. And if you're not passing out, I will say, think of the sector you are in. Every single sector is changing, right? If you're a mechanical stream person, look at automotive engineering, how it's going to change. Look at airline industry. There's a transition happening to electric planes and things like that. There's a transition happening to drones, etc. So look for new things that are happening, and um, build a career. Look for fast growing companies. Again, that's very important. When I passed out my MTech, I worked for 2 years for Padma Computers. I got offers from larger companies, but I felt that a smaller company would be faster growing, give me more opportunities to show my talent and things like that. We'll be appreciated better. And that's why I chose Padma rather than the larger companies that I got offers in. So think about these things as you look at passing out this year or even continuing education for the future. Every single discipline is going to change. And I also urge you to learn 2 or 3 disciplines together. Learn a little bit of biology, maybe take some courses in biology, etc. Because it's at the intersection that opportunities are emerging, disruptions are happening, new things are happening. Multiple disciplines are involved in creating solutions today.
Thank you, sir, for those motivational words and for taking your time off of your busy schedule. So it was a delight to host you as an inaugural speaker for Inspirit, and I'm certain that the audience has taken away valuable inputs from this session.
Thank you all very much, and wish you again all the very best. Thank you.
I would also like to thank the audience for joining us. Stay safe and stay tuned for the upcoming Inspirit lectures. Thank you.
Bye.